Hello traders, welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video that I posted yesterday, which was, I wasn't planning on really posting it, but just to give you guys an idea about some of the content and some of the material that we use here at Sniper Effects to execute our trades. I'm just currently going through the markets right now, getting prepared for the week ahead. And I wanted to do this quick breakdown for you guys on some of the pairs I'm looking at, and just to give you some idea about possible market direction and sentiment this week and how you could possibly be looking to trade the markets this week. So the first thing I want to talk about is something called the yen basket. Now, there are several pairs I am looking for this week. Obviously, you guys saw the gold breakdown on the call yesterday. This was a 35 to 1 on Friday. And then Thursday, sorry, and the reversal trade now is back into gold buys on Friday because we snapped that liquidity as I broke down for the guys. And obviously my daily bias, as you know, on gold is bullish because I think this unconfirmed higher low that we've just printed over here will become a confirmed higher low, but we'll have to monitor prices. A lot of liquidity above here. But some of the other pairs I'm watching this week are pound CAD, US 30, and obviously I'm heavily bearish on the dollar index, as you saw, and you can see that weekly close. It's closed with a lot of momentum. So I want to break down another pair for you guys. So in order to trade pound yen effectively, we use something called the yen index. Now, a lot of people don't know about this. It's something not many people use, but indices are very important in the market. They give you an often clue before the actual assets will turn. So what the yen index basket is it tells you or gives you the relative strength of the Japanese yen against a basket of other currencies. So when this index goes up, that means the yen is getting stronger. So everything relatively to the yen is getting weaker. And when this goes down, that means the yen is getting weaker. So everything relatively to the yen is getting stronger. So when one of my favorite assets to trade is pound yen, and you guys know it's particularly volatile, it can be difficult to time trades. And therefore, if we can use something like the yen index to give us better direction on when the market is going to turn, because the yen is either getting stronger or weaker, we can really time our trades on pound yen. So let's have a look at the yen index. So at the bottom of here, just to orientate ourselves about structure, because as you know, structure can get confusing and it can get really complicated because different time frames are in different structural trends. So what I mean by that is the daily could be trending in one direction, the lower time frames can be trending in a different direction. How do you know which time frame to focus on to get your direction, etc.? So it can become a very confusing process for people. So let me just break this down for you guys. So obviously, the weekly and the monthly are not relevant for the chart at the moment because the weekly is obviously bearish. We had that break over here. So, but that's too far away from price action currently. So if we go on the daily time frame, so what do we see? The daily is clearly, there was a considerable downward pressure over here, which got negated when we broke this structural point over here. We started to shift and started making higher highs and higher lows. And you can see that. So the external framework, the external skeleton on the daily time frame is that the daily was printing higher highs and higher lows, which is fantastic. Now, if we go slightly lower time frame to get a better view of that daily structural picture, you can see when we made this external landmark here, if the trend was to continue, i.e. the bullish market sentiment was to continue, we should have taken out this high. However, that did not happen. We actually printed an unconfirmed lower high at the time, and actually it wiped out this structural point on the external daily landmark over here in order to create that daily lower low. So that unconfirmed lower high became a confirmed lower low, which means that the market is now transitioning between the bullish market sentiment into a bearish market sentiment. So as price was going up here and making higher highs and higher lows, the yen basket was getting considerably stronger. However, now it's showing that we've got a potential shift, and in the long-term view, we can see the yen get considerably weaker. However, that doesn't explain the intraday directions, but it's very important to now know that our daily time frame is now bearish, i.e. we've broken out that external structure or that external landmark over here, printing that daily lower low, and therefore we can conclude we are now transitioning from bullish sentiment into bearish sentiment. So now why is that important? That's very important because you now have direction for the future. So what you can expect is, because we've printed a lower low, we could possibly somewhere along this impulse that broke this important structure go and print a lower high, and therefore we get bearish continuation. However, before that can happen, of course, to print that lower high, the lower time frames will have to trend bullish in order to create that higher time frame structural landmark. And therefore, we can conclude right now daily is bearish, which is great. Let's look at what the lower time frames are doing. So as price, and also the detail to note is, as we've broken that structural point, this impulse has ended and generated or engineered liquidity with this structural point to the left here, which is significant. So there's engineered liquidity here for the future for the market to go through if it desires or chooses to do so. But on the lower time frame, what can we see? So when price engineered liquidity with that structural point on the higher time frame on the left, we have then shifted this internal H1 pressure as it was coming down. So we have started wiping out this internal H1 trend over here, and now H1 has become bullish. Now we've also shifted H4 bullish as well when we wiped out that structural landmark. So H1 and H4 are now bullish. What did price stop at here? Price has stopped at essentially a 30-minute area of supply in the market. And we are, because we've created the H4 impulse, price has come down, and now, as I've denoted over here, daily was bearish, H4 is bullish, H1 is bullish. This mixed structure, which is fine. Structure can be mixed. That's not the point. The point is to understand why it's mixed. The reason why it's mixed right now is because structurally, the relatively medium-term timeframes are trying to create that higher time frame structural landmark. Because what are we expecting? We are expecting a daily lower high. The reason why we're expecting this is because the only thing we can do is react of current market intention, and that's the intention the market is showing at the moment. There is a possibility we can break the highs because this might just be a run of liquidity, but based on the structure and the market dynamics, the market is indicating to us we are shifting from bullish to bearish because we have wiped out significant daily, weekly external structure, which is fantastic. So currently, how does that help us trade pound yen? So if you look at current price action, if we go slightly lower time frames, and let me orientate you guys to what I'm looking at next. So next thing I want to look at is my slightly lower time frame, so M15, M30, M5. So if we look at it, so in order to create this H4 structural point, just like the H4 is trying to create the daily structural point, you would have had internal lower time frames creating that trend. So which time frame was presenting structure as that H4 landmark was building? And you can see we had M15 becoming bullish, right? So there's a higher high and higher low over here. You got an M15, which is now, because we're looking at M15, yeah, M15 is the external skeleton. So M15 higher high, higher low, M15 higher high, higher low, M15 higher high, which creates that H4 higher high because we wipe out H4 structure point over here, right? We wiped out that H4 structure point over there. And let me tag it with an arrow just so we are orientated in the future. And yeah, so that was a H4 BOS right there, right? So M15 was bullish, okay? Now, when M15 created that H4 higher high on that M30 area of supply to the left, you've got what? You've got a breakdown of that internal M5, M15 architecture or skeleton of the market externally. And therefore, momentarily, the market on this time frame has shifted from a bullish dynamic to bearish dynamic. And what is it trying to do? Because you've printed a H4 higher high, you need to go and print the H4 higher low so you can get continuation of the H4 trend here. And so how is that going to happen? Well, we need to follow and see if the market's following some of the rules that we look for when it's creating. So obviously it's in an internal downtrend because we shifted the internal M5 architecture, creating internal lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower high, lower lows. And therefore, you can also see there's a bunch of liquidity building up across here, which the market is slammed through. Now, when we have liquidity being grabbed, that means the market is potentially free to turn to the opposite side. And you can see what are the indicators indicating that the market can potentially turn. So as we were looking at the M5 architecture here, you can see this was the last M5 impulse, which shot through liquidity. So it's a significant landmark in price. And let me just change the color so we can orientate ourselves. So this is the leg that wiped out liquidity that got shifted on M5. And that's why I've written over here that the M5 just shifted, was bearish, it shifted bearish to bullish. And you can see that what I'm talking about is that the M5 timeframe, when it got broken here, has now shifted from bearish to bullish because we grabbed liquidity. And now we have created a new structural M5 or M15, which is the higher time frame, really higher high. And let me mark that in green. So you can see that, and that's fantastic. So we are in a complex pullback because internally, relatively to the M15 time frame, the lower time frames that are making this internal structure are bearish. There's trend line liquidity over here, and we've basically tagged into the FU candle, liquidity void QML plane, and hit it. So that is potentially the M15. This was the M15 higher high and higher low. So let's tag it now. And let me label this live for you guys because we want to be correct and accurate with our understanding of structure, because we are looking for market direction for pound yen, and that's particularly important. So if we don't analyze structure correctly, we don't know what pound yen is doing in the future. So and we cannot forecast it correctly. So M15 unconfirmed. Look, now, what are some of the clues that the market here is going to shift? So now I did talk about that in order to create this confirmed higher low at the moment, you have an internal trend here. So you have internal M3, M2 trend, M2 lower low, lower high, etc. Lower low, lower high, lower low. And you can see now M3 has now shifted from bearish internally to bullish, and therefore you can expect the yen basket to come here, create an M3 higher high, and we can shift higher. And I won't go into the refinement of the supply and demand zone here, but I've labeled all the refinements. But you should watch the previous video that I posted for the team call where I went through that process and how you refine your supply and demand zones to get it. So that tells me that this week coming forwards, the yen basket should have H4 continuation to the upside. And what does that mean? That means the yen should get stronger, and therefore we can expect pound yen to get weaker because the yen is getting stronger. So if we look at what's happening on pound yen at the moment, and again, we go back to structure. Structure here is bullet, it's recurring higher highs and higher lows, but an internal higher time frame downtrend wiped out this external landmark. So we shifted from a bullish to bearish environment, created lower highs, and then internally we started making a downtrend because we want to wipe out this structure, because we're looking, the market's looking to make another low because it's just made a lower high over here relatively to that point over there. The confusing bit becomes, because his wipes came into that area over here, it hasn't really been able to shift it yet, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that internal trend is yet finished, because as the market's done, you can still make an internal lower high and then still continue to go lower. There are two possibilities the market could have done here. It could have actually gone up and wiped out that pressure on the 4-hour time frame, and therefore we would have then shifted from that bearish back into bullish market sentiment. However, it's on the second situation where it's still in an internal downtrend, so it can continue to wipe out that bit of structure. So in order to figure that out, we have created another lower high over here internally. We have to go on the lower time frame and see what's happening on that internal trend. So on that internal trend, we've still got lower highs and lower lows, because when we were creating that the 4-hour lower high landmark, we obviously had to have bullish structure leading into it. And that shifted on the 4-hour or the lower, slightly lower medium-term timeframes from bullish to bearish market sentiment. And now we've come back into that area of supply in the market, and you can see what's happening here. So does this not correlate with our outlook on the yen basket that the yen will get stronger? Yes, it does, because we've come above the flip zone. We've engineered liquidity, and this is a Wyckoff schematic. Buying climax, AR secondary test. You've got liquidity being engineered on both sides, and we got slammed that liquidity to the downside, slammed it to the upside, and we have come into that area of supply in the market, and we started shifting during our entry protocol. I won't go into it because I just want to orientate you in how you get proper market direction in the market. And we have started shifting lower. So you can see on market close, I took this trade with my team and I sent this to them at the time. And basically, you can see pound yen is continuing to drop beautifully. Now, in order to monitor it, and another clues you can look for direction is basically the liquidity pull of price. So when pound yen was creating this internal structure here last week, towards the end of the week, look what it's done. This wick has slammed into previous structure, creating liquidity. If we put our Asian session indicator on, it's interesting how we grabbed liquidity on those Asia lows, but we didn't magnetize for these lows yet. Because price is saving it, it needed more fuel. It picked up liquidity on this trendline liquidity, and now it will continue to shoot lower for these levels. So TP1, you can have it at 14921, and then TP2 Asia lows, and TP3, you can extend it to go and make and try and hit lower demand zones within this wick structure over here, which we can refine. So that's a quick sentiment and market direction breakdown on pound yen. So you can see it's clearly not a process where you just wake up on the charts and think, well, today I'm going to buy pound yen or sell it, right? You really have to have a process for start looking at the direction based on the index, right? And the appropriate index you're using. And then after that, you can go on the appropriate asset class and trade it and try and work out what's going on. But again, you still need to follow your technical approach on pound yen in order to get the entry, i.e., how do you refine your higher time frame POI? How do you refine your lower time frame POI? When prices come into that POI, what are the confirmation entries you use in order to get it? So that was a quick breakdown on pound yen and the yen index. Hope you guys are well. I might post a gold breakdown as well for this week because I'm looking at it also US 30, but if not, I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys have a good trading week, and I'll keep the content coming regularly. So I might post a market breakdown every day for you guys of some pairs I'm looking at. I really enjoy this sort of stuff because obviously when you talk things through, it's trading no longer becomes a passive process. You're actually actively thinking about what you're doing. So it can be beneficial in that way as well. So hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are enjoying the content, and I'll catch up with you guys very, very soon.